Hi teacher, we are going to talk about the scientific method. The team is confirmed by Águila Guevara, Yasmin Berenice, Cecilia Balanzario Fabián, León Barrios Jairo, Mejía Martínez Bricenit, and Palacios Rodríguez Vanessa. Scientific method. The scientific method is a way of asking and answering scientific questions by making observations and doing experiments. It is used a process or steps that are taken to produce reliable results to answer a specific question, used to support a simple test, a hypothesis.
Hello teacher, my name is Mejía Martínez Bricenit and I will to talk about the first step of scientific method. The steps of scientific method. The first step of scientific method is to ask a question. You ask a question or identify the problem will you like resolve, like the question of animal, of a person, of a process. Okay. We can ask a question about something, someone, some process, and more. The question is important as it will define the topic of we want to talk about animals, plants, how do you do it, and more. And it will allow us to advance with the rest of the steps of scientific methods, observation, experimentation, hypotheses, etc. Okay, the question can be what. What is referred to a thing, anything. For example, what time is in Madrid? Where is refers to a place. For example, where to buy the best plants. Why talk about for a reason. For example, where is there day and night? Who is to refer a person who invented the cell phones. When it refers to a date, a year, etc. For example, what the medicine was discovered, and how is to describe, for example, how make the dolls. Okay, if we want to talk about plants, we can ask the following questions. What are the use of plants? Where to plant flowers? Why plants are important? Who discovered medicinal plants? When to use plants as medicine? And how is the metabolism of the plants? So, if we already have the question, can we move on to next step?
I am Yasmin Berenice Avila Guevara, and I'm going to talk about step 2 of the scientific method, which is observation. Observation consists of the direct collection of data from nature through fieldwork or laboratory work. It includes the research, collection, analysis, and organization of data related to the topic that interests us. Observation is the phase in which the necessary data will be obtained, which will be worked on the following phases, and that will determine the goal of the study. The observation must consist of an attentive and rigorous examination of the facts and natural phenomena observed, which must be compiled for future study. Scientific observation has yielded the largest amount of data throughout the story of those that make our world encyclopedia. This means that by observing nature and drawing conclusions from this observation, we have been able to deduce and then experimentally verify many of the laws that govern the universe. Therefore, observation is essential in the systematic and orderly approach proposed by the scientific method, so that the results are as reliable as possible. There are two basic types of observation, which are direct, the one on which the fact or phenomenon that is being perceived can be the toilet, and that in which the phenomenon perceived is not observable, but its presence can be deduced from parallel observation or other phenomena. It also applies to observation that are based on the previous data collected by other sciences. The observation can also be classified according to its place of realization. In field observation, when the scientist is a natural intellectual or his instruments allow him to observe the phenomenon directly in his place in it. Laboratory observation, when the observed phenomenon occurs in the controlled environment of the laboratory, that is, when it is replicated experimentally.
I am Vanessa and I am going to talk about step 3 for an hypothesis. A hypothesis is a statement that is proposed as a basis to explain why or how a phenomenon or set or relate phenomena occurs. The hypothesis is the tentative answer to the problem. It is a proposition that is tested to determine its validity. Hypotheses are assumptions based on evidence and supported by theory. The success of the investigation is in the establishment of a correct hypothesis. Elements of the hypothesis: base, structure, variables, analysis units, logical elements. Type of hypothesis: descriptive, one variable; descriptive, two variables; explanatory, two or more variables. Example: the less communication with parents, the greater drug addiction among adolescents. Observation and analysis. Parents and adolescents. Variables: independent variable, lack of communication with parents; variable dependent, drug addiction; logic element, the smaller, the bigger.
My name is Jairo León Barrios. Step 4. Design an experiment and test your hypothesis. Your experiment tests whether your prediction is accurate and thus your hypothesis is supported or not. It is important for your experiment to be a fair test. You conduct a fair test by making sure that you change only one factor at a time while keeping at other conditions the same. Step 5. Analyze the data. Once your experiment is complete, you collect your measurements and analyze them to see if they support your hypothesis or not. Scientists often find that their prediction will not accurate and their hypothesis was not supported, and in such case they will communicate the result of their experiment and they go back and construct a new hypothesis and prediction based on the information they learned during their experiment. This starts much of the process of the scientist method over again. Even if they think that their hypothesis was supported, they might want to test again in a net way. K-Info. If you haven't already, maintain a notebook to record and or use observation during your experiment. Before starting your experiment, prepare a data table so you can write down your measurements as you observe them. Follow your experiment production exactly. If you need to make change in the product, which often happens, write down the change exactly as you made them. Be consistent, careful, and accurate when you take your measurements. Numerical measurements are best. Take pictures of your experiment for use on your display board if you can.
Hello teacher, my name is Fabian Sicilia Bonifacio. I'm going to tell you about step 6, draw a conclusion. Once the results have been analyzed, it will be necessary to assess what implies our hypothesis, based on whether or not the predictions regarding the behavior of the variables that should have occurred if our hypotheses were correct are fulfilled or not. This step is intended to provide an answer to the question or problem originally raised. If the data correspond, the experiment will support the hypothesis, and otherwise it will refute it. It must be borne in mind that we are only dealing with a positive or negative data from an experiment. It will be necessary to replicate it in order to determine if our hypothesis is fulfilled in other experimental conditions or in other experiments. This is one of the steps of the science method, with which the discipline now as philosophy processes matters most, since it allows us to know to what extent it is valid or not to draw certain conclusions from the results of the analysis of the data work. To do this, we reflect of the ontological nature of the phenomena studied and on the possible weaknesses of the methods used from the point of view of epistemology. Whether you ask the hypothesis that we held has been empirically verified or not, it can be rendered net, or, if indicative, use it as a basis to generate new knowledge, something that will understand the phenomena and problems studied in greater depth. In any case, it should not be forgotten that the refutation of our hypothesis also offers knowledge that was not had before the investigation. So in this circumstance, not everything is bad news. Thanks for watching, teacher. Bye.